Welcome in, everybody. Hope you're doing well. And thank you for joining me again today for another week and another day of the mindful movement session. As always, just do the best you can for these sessions. If you need to take any extra breaks, whether that's for hydration or just for rest at any point, feel free to do so, but just try the best you can, and I will guide you through the session the best that I can as well. When you're ready to, get yourself in a nice comfortable position and just start with some nice deep breathing going in through the nose, out through the mouth, and then whenever you're ready to, you can close down those eyes in your own time and your own pace. And always with this breathing, don't just go through the motions of breathing. Notice how your body reacts, how when the air rushes in through your nose, fills up your lung, inflates the chest up and forwards. Notice how it feels to have that oxygen in your body. And as you breathe out, just notice how you relax down, shoulders come down forward slightly. And just be aware of what's happening to you, to your body, how you feel, your relaxation levels as you're doing this deep breathing. Hopefully, as you're doing this, you're feeling a sense of calm wash over you and just help relax you down where you are. And now we are in that much more relaxed state. Keep your breathing going, but just thank yourself for turning up today. You've done the hard bit by joining us in the session. Now, all you have to do is focus on your breathing, your movement, and you don't need to worry about anything else outside of this hour together here we have. We don't need to worry about what's come before us, what's happening later, just focusing on being present in the moment on each movement, exercise, breathing, whatever we're doing today. Keeping it focused on what we've got ahead of us, what we're doing. Keep your eyes closed, keep your breathing going. We did this a couple of weeks ago where we did a body scan at the beginning of the session and then a body scan at the end of the session, just to give ourselves a comparison. I want to do that again today, which is where we just check in on each and every part of our body and just see the difference between the beginning of the session and the end of the session. So keeping the eyes closed, keeping the breathing going, but bring that focus right to the top of the head and just check in and see how you feel in the top of your head. Coming down to our forehead, you can give it a wiggle, you can give it a move, but just put some focus on there. Notice how it feels, how you feel in this area as you come down into the eye sockets, the cheeks. And you can wiggle it if you need to into the jaw. And then down into the neck area. So again, you could give us some little movements just to see how it feels. You don't have to do big movements yet. We'll move on to that with the actual session itself. Coming down through our shoulders. Those are little movements, see how it is. Down through our arms into our elbows. Again, you can bend the arm at the elbows just to see how it feels. Down through the forearms into our wrists, our fingers, noticing how they feel. Coming back up into the spine now. You can move it side to side, back and forth, just seeing how things are before we put in the exercises that we're going to be doing later on. Down through our hips. You may not be able to move these areas, but just put some attention and focus in it. Down through our upper legs into the knees. Through the lower legs, into the ankles. Our feet. And finally our toes. We're going to do three deep breaths going from the tip of our toes all the way to the top of our head. Nice deep breaths in. So breathe in, breathe out. Two more. And on that third one, you can start to open up your eyes. And let's continue our breathing here. A little bit less deep, but as you breathe in, shrug the shoulders up. As you breathe out, relax them down. Welcome in, Liz. So as we're doing that body scan there to begin with, you just have a baseline of how you feel before the session. Try and remember those sensations in the different parts of our body and see how different it is at the end of the session once we've gone through all the movements. We're going to continue our breathing, but we're going to breathe in, gather those clouds above our head. As we breathe out, push it down into our tummy. So imagine you've got a load of clouds above your head, gathering them in. As you breathe in, as you breathe out, you push it down into your tummy. Keep that going. With the arms, just do the best you can with getting them as wide as you can. Whether that looks like what I'm doing or if it's just smaller movements, no worries. Whatever you can do there, just to gather it up, bring it down. Movements, everybody. Let's reverse that direction now. So pushing it up, breathing out. You can breathe it in as you bring these arms round. Do one more here. Yeah, we come back into the breathing with the shrugs for a second. And squeezing it tight as you breathe in, relaxing down as you breathe out. Good. Now instead of going up and down, we're going to come forwards and back. So breathe in as you bring those shoulder blades together. Breathe out as you push them forwards. I come to the side so you can see it from there. As I breathe in, shoulder blades are coming back, squeezing nice and tight. As I breathe out, pushing them forwards. And then still going with this sort of thing, but we're going to just do some rotations around now, like we would when we do our warm-ups for the exercises that we tend to do. We do just some circles around, nice, slow, controlled movements. You don't need to go necessarily to the extremes of the movement, just go with what feels comfortable. You may feel clunky, you may feel like there's some bits where you're getting a bit of a stretch in there, but just go nice, comfortable movements. We're just mobilizing these shoulder joints. Same movement in the opposite direction. Okay, let's get a little bit of stretching in that shoulder joint now as well. So first of all, this first one, you can either do it single arm or double arm, depending on your ability to hold each position, or you to reach one hand forwards the best you can, or both hands forwards, and then bring it back to stretch it out. And like we said the last time, you've got a couple of options. So one is just alternating the hands, so stretch forwards, bring, oh, big spasm there. Bring it back and stretch the chest. You can do both at the same time. So you can reach forwards, reach back, or if you want to do a bit of a combination one, because it's used to reaching forwards to the harder bit. So you reach forward with one and then stretch back with both together. Essentially, I want you to is get as far forward as you can with that arm. And it's less about leaning forwards, it's more trying to push that shoulder forward. So you see this movement here with the shoulder, trying to stretch that forwards and then stretching it back. And then we go alternating the hands if you're doing alternating, or if you just do the single arm. And then each one you do, you may just find that stretch feeling you get just gets a little bit easier, on each one you do, just as those muscles warm up to what you're doing to them. A similar sort of thing, but instead of going forwards and back, we go over to one side, reach over the best you can, down and over to the other side. Remembering if you can't get over the top, we can come across the front of us instead, or wherever you can get to. But the higher you can get your arm on this, the more preferable. And it may look like you can do that on one side, but the other side you might not be able to do as much. That's fine. Whatever you can do on each arm. Reaching over, get a bit of a stretch, and over to the other side. Then, even if you are doing it lower, we're going to move on to coming lower. So you come across the front, and then back, and then over to the other side, across the front. And you should get maybe a little bit of a stretch on the rear deltoids there, which is sort of this upper part of the arm as you bring it across. Repeating side to side. Good work. And then the last one for these type of movements is going to be our rotator cuff. So we start either one hand or both hands, rotate up, and then rotate all the way down, and just go back and forth between the two. Again, you can do both arms together. Try and keep those upper arms parallel to the floor, or as I'm showing here, you can do one arm at a time. Maybe do a couple on one side and then switch over to the other. But upper arm parallel to the floor, rotating up, rotating down. And if you can't keep your arms up there, you can do the same movement, but just with those arms a little bit lower as well. Especially when you bring them back, you'll feel probably quite a deep stretch inside the shoulder capsule. That's those rotator cuffs being stretched. When we bring it back, that's the front one being stretched. And when we bring it down, that's the rear three being stretched a bit. Yeah, right. Let's ease that off. Let's just go back to some of those shoulder rotations again. Just so now we stretched it, we're going to get a little bit extra blood flow in the area. Start to send those muscles exactly what it needs. Backwards or forwards if you were going backwards before. And let's increase those shoulder movements a little bit more. We put our hands on our shoulders and we'll go forwards to begin with. You can either do both arms together, alternate ones, one, then the other, just one arm, whatever you can do, mix and match. Don't mind however you do this, just bring it around. Remember, your hands don't need to be locked in one place, they can glide around on top of your shoulder. But just getting those round. And let's change direction. And again, you can do both together, alternating sides. One, then the other, just the one. I don't mind. Bring that down. And before we have a little drink break, we did our, I've forgotten what the name is now. um, our body scan. Let's just do a quick little one. We close down our eyes, do a couple of bit of breathing. Let's just focus on that shoulder area. I want to notice how it felt before the session and now how it feels, rather than try to remember half an hour from now-ish. So we're trying, let's do a couple of breaths, close down our eyes. And let's bring the attention into the shoulders. So remember how they felt when you focused on them earlier. And think about how they feel now. We've stretched out the front, middle, rear deltoids. So all the deltoids here, we stretched out the chest a little bit, the traps, the lats. These are all the muscles that connect to that series of shoulder joints here. So just give it a move around, just really focus. Just do one side at a time as well. That'll help you focus a little bit more. And just notice the difference between when we started the session and then after we did those movements. And I know for myself personally, you can switch back and forth between the two in your own time, whenever you feel like is the right to. But for myself, I notice there's not just a lot more range of motion, like I can get further in every direction, but not just that, but it's easier to get to those as well. So it's not just that I can get further, I can mobilize more. The mobilization itself is easier, and also it's a lot less clunky, which is not a scientific term, but it's how it feels when I'm just waking up and I'm just moving around. It's like so sounds like an old car trying to start up, but once it gets moving, once it gets flowing, it feels a lot smoother and a lot like I can just do a lot more with it, a lot safer as well. So let's bring that focus back out again of that. And let's have a little drink break at the halfway point here. And those are good things to keep on track on top of, like how your shoulders feel and how they should feel when they're loose and mobile, which is, I think, quite a lot of wheelchair users, especially those who are manual wheelchair users, but also those who are using power chairs as well. It's good to get your shoulders to that mobility before you go like out for a push, for example, because you're essentially warming yourself up. Like pushing a wheelchair is not easy, like by any stretch of the imagination, doesn't matter how fit and strong you are. So having that warm up in there is really important for, like, if you, even if you're just popping out of the house for a little bit, transferring in the car, transferring out, going around the shop, whatever it may be. Or even if you're in a power chain, you're doing household chores or you're doing whatever it may be, just having that mobility is going to make sure that your shoulders are able to do the tasks that you present to them in a way that is less likely to have an injury. And obviously, we want to look after our shoulders the best we can. So, noticing the difference between how it feels when we haven't done warm up stuff and when we have. And it doesn't necessarily have to be what we're half an hour into the session, it doesn't have to be a 30-minute thing. It can be a quick sort of, just a couple of shoulder rotations back and forth. You can judge it based on whatever activity that you want to do going forward. So if you're like, oh, right, I'm going to go for a 20-minute push on in my manual chair and it's going to be up and downhill, then you may need to do a little bit more. But if you're doing some household chores, just maybe a little couple of circles before you get the Hoover out or whatever it may be. Although I know a lot of people use the robots now, so that might be redundant. I don't know. But yeah, like whatever it may be, those noticing the difference is really important. So the more we do it in the sessions, the more you'll be able to translate that into doing everyday tasks as well. So yeah, don't limit yourself to this hour. You can take the skills and put them in other parts of your day. Excellent. Hope you've all had a drink by now. We can get started on our spinal mobility. And what we do, we check in again. We do a little bit of movement in our neck and our spine just to see how it feels. And then we do the spinal mobility, and then we check in again afterwards to see the difference between the two. So let's recenter ourselves, focus on that neck mobility first of all. So nice deep breathing, closing the eyes down when you're ready to. And then let's bring that focus into your neck. We're not doing our specific movements quite yet. I just want you to give it a move in all directions and just notice how it feels. Like, is it feeling stiff? Is it feeling good? Whatever it may feel like, just notice the range of motion, how easy it is to get into those range of motion. I don't tend to like to use the word too much, but like how stiff does it feel? And then once you've done your neck a little bit, we can go down into the rest of our spine. So moving the back around, going side to side, maybe a little rotation, and just noticing how it feels. We won't spend too much time here. And as we bring that focus back out of that, so just got a little bit of a baseline there, and we check back in once we've done our mobility. So let's go through our neck first of all, looking up, looking down, nice and slow and controlled, going for a good range of motion, but we don't need to really extend it yet. When we get to the stretchy parts, we can do a bit more of that. Okay, when you find yourself looking down next, let's hold it there and just let gravity take over. I find with this as well, if I tuck my chin in, my spine, the vertebrae in my neck sort of curl over just a little bit more. Just, it's a small subtle difference, but in like the how I'm moving it, but it feels like it's a big difference in terms of the mobility in the neck there. where holding that can be a little bit harder to breathe, so don't do it for too long if that's the case for you as well. Ease out a bit, looking up and down a couple of times. And then the next time you find yourself looking up, holding it there. And remember, we want to increase that stretch. We close the mouth, put the hand on the sternum and slightly pull down. And you can always increase it a little bit more, give yourself a little bit of an underbite as well. And in this position, don't do too much about it, but carefully you can rock it side to side a little bit. Maybe finding some areas where you get a little bit more of a stretch. You'll probably notice that one side feels tighter than the other. Which is perfectly normal. Some of this has got to do with what side you chew food on more as well, because you'll have one side of your jaw that's stronger than the other because you use it more often, basically. Let's ease out of that. We'll do a couple of looking up and downs. Nice. And then let's go into our rotation next. So look inside to side. And I can already tell, even after the first one there, we've done, my neck already feels like it's got a lot more mobility in it when I move into these other ones, which is good. Okay, next time you find yourself looking to the left, holding it there. To increase the stretch, we can pull down on that skin towards the right collarbone. And just increase that stretch sort of between the collarbone there and the ear. And change that area as well. Keeping the mouth closed, increase that stretch too. And again, we can sort of do a little bit of movement in here as well. You can look up and down a little bit. If you look up, the stretch will definitely increase. Especially if you're holding that collarbone. So we'll do a couple of lefts and rights. Now, the next time you find yourself looking to the right, we can hold that there. Increase the stretch by putting that hand, stretching it down to the collarbone. And then again, you can move through this one. Sounds fit, yeah. Let's move on to going our lateral flexions. That's one ear to one shoulder, to the other, back and forth. And then when you find your left ear on your left shoulder, holding it there. And remember the other arm, we can either drop it straight away down to the floor, or we can take it behind our back there, just to increase that stretch further. Whatever feels good to you. And again, in this position, we can move it around a little bit, rocking that head back and forth. You might find different areas that you get a bit of a stretch in. And then you ease out of it. We'll do a couple of side to sides. And whenever you're ready to, over to the right side, right ear to right shoulder. Drop that left hand down or behind. And feel that stretching then. And move the head back and forth. Find different areas of the neck that need stretching. Ease out of it, good. Nice, gentle movements to ease out. Let's go through the rest of our spine. So starting with some extension, flexion, back and forth between the two. Curling over, remember. Arching back. It's not just bending forwards and sitting up straight. We are trying to curl that spine. Remember, like a slinky is the best way to imagine it. Where each individual vertebrae is contributing to this movement. We don't normally do a hold for the flexion extension, but let's give it a go today. We'll start with the flexion, so curling down and just holding it there. And curled over like this with the flexion. Might be quite an easy position to hold because it's one that is quite common for us wheelchair users to be in a more hunched over position. So this one might not be too easy, but as we come out of it and go into the extension, this one might be a little bit harder to hold. It's going to vary from person to person here. But the best you can, pushing that chest out, arching that back, holding out the best you can. If it's too difficult to hold for too long, you can ease out of it and come back into it. Extend to there. Good. Let's go into our rotation. So rotate one side and the other, back and forth. And the next time you find yourself looking to the left, let's do a hold there as well. With this one in particular, I like to breathe into it. As I breathe in, sit up a little bit straight. As I breathe out, I can just rotate that a little bit more. As I breathe in, it kind of want to pushes me back round again a little bit. That's perfectly normal. That's your body working with each other. Sounds good. The lefts and rights. And then whenever you find yourself rotated to the right next, we can hold that one there. It's not just rotating around, it's rotating around and sitting up nice and tall as well. Elongating that spine as you're rotating it. And breathe. Easing out of that. And let's go into some lateral flexion now. It's where we reach down to one side, reach down to the other side, and back and forth between the two. And next time you find yourself coming down to the left, you can hold it there. If you want to, you can add in another little stretch with the arm there, but essentially focusing more on the curling over to the side than anything else. Won't hold this one for too long because we've already done it a little bit today, and then we'll do a couple to come out of it. And then whenever you're ready to go over to the other side, head on over to that side. And feel that mobility, feel that stretch a bit. Yeah, and easing out of it. Yeah. Let's do our whirlpool one to finish off these movements. So just going around in a circle like you're in a whirlpool. It doesn't matter on the direction because we will swap in a minute. Swap directions now. It's going the opposite way around. Ease out a bit. Good. Let's go into some breathing. And then we're going to check back in with that neck and spine like we have been doing throughout this session. So first of all, breathing nice and deeply, closing your eyes whenever you're ready to. Before we move into checking on the neck, try and picture in your mind of how your neck and your spine felt before we did the mobility. And let's check in with it now. So you can do through the neck, and instantly I know for myself, so much more movement, but again, it's less about how much more movement I can do, but the ease of which I can do it. I can easily move side to side, back and forth, the rotation. Everything feels smoother, glides easier, and that's really helpful for looking after those muscles in the long term. And that's what we want from our muscles. We want them strong, but we also want them movable, flexible. And let's check through the rest of our spine as well. Again, just wiggle it around. It doesn't have to be any sort of pattern to what you're doing. We're just noticing how it feels. But having those closed eyes, deep focus on the spine can help us to really notice the difference between before the mobility and after the mobility, and really notice the difference. Hopefully you notice as much difference as I do, because I feel like it's such a big difference in terms of how easily I can move. But let's open up our eyes. What's the time? Right, we've got 10 minutes here. We'll have a quick little drink break, and then we will finish off today's session with a little bit of meditation work. Okay. So nice, comfortable position where whenever you're ready to. And we go back to our breathing, closing down the eyes and just focusing on that breath, breathing in, breathing out, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Try and make that out breath longer than the in breath. Good. If you haven't already, close down your eyes now. And I want you to open in your mind's eye. I want you to picture the forest scene that we've created in the past. If you're not aware of this, this is fine. Or if you've done it before, that's actually fine as well. If you want to change up your scene from last time, whatever it may be, I'm going to guide you through it anyway. So in your mind's eye, open up a scene of a forest, either one you know, maybe even one from a movie, or just from your imagination, whatever it may be, and start to picture in the most amount of detail you can. So picturing the colors, how the light interacts with things, noticing the different shades, the different textures, noticing a path laying before you, the different plants, the different wildlife. And as we picture those things, let's bring into our mind as well the sounds of the forest. Maybe it's the wind rustling through the leaves, the chirping of the birds, the noise of the cicadas, whatever it may be. Just noticing all those different sounds of the forest. Try and picture the smells as well as you're doing this, that earthy smell, the fresh air smell, whatever it may be that you associate with this sort of area. Start to visualize that also. Build up this mind's eye image. We've got the visuals, we've got the sounds, we've got the smells. Trying to paint this picture within our mind with the most possible detail. Start to interact as well with it, get that touch involved. Notice how maybe a tree bark feels, how a leaf feels. Maybe even if you can't feel your feet, maybe imagine what it would be like to walk barefoot, crunching through leaves, walking through grass, whatever it may be. Just trying to make it more and more detailed as you do so. And I'm going to ask for some of you that's going to pull you slightly out of it a second. But I just want you to notice how you feel right now, how your nervous system is, how relaxed you feel, how shoulders are reduced down, whatever it may be. But just notice the relaxation feeling you're sensing right now. Just want you to take note of that, bring yourself back to the forest scene again. And I'll explain why we want to do that in a second. Let's close down this scene now. So close down the touch, close down the sounds, the smells, and slowly start to close the visual in your mind, fading into black. And then as you start to open up your eyes, you can continue the breathing. Good work. Okay, so I'm just going to explain why I wanted to pull you out of that for a second. I just want you to notice that how relaxed you feel in that moment. It's such a great skill to be able to relax yourself. It's a really important skill at any point, whether you're feeling anxious, nervous, whatever it may be, to help you relax, or whether it's like you already feel fairly relaxed, you just want to be able to move in and out of that state. When we have mental focus on something other than our surroundings and on what we're doing, it can really help us to bring that nervous system down, calm ourselves, reduce the heart rate, reduce the blood pressure, and just bring us into a state of calm, which is really important to be able to control that essentially. You know, sometimes we want to get our heart rate up, especially when we're doing exercise. That's when we do the warm up. So kind of imagine this as like a warm up into cooling down, that's like relaxing down, visualize it that way. Because what we're doing, we're using just our mind here, breathing at the same time and just focusing on our different senses, and that just brings us down and down and down. And that focus can help us to really, really relax. It's also a fantastic way if you ever need to get to sleep at any point, and you're struggling to, rather than your mind worrying about lots of different things, we can focus on one thing and just focus on diving deeper and deeper into it, and that helps us to relax down even further. So that's why I wanted just to pull you out for it for a second, notice how you feel, and then finishing off there. Anyway, that's it for today's session. Thank you again for joining me today.